Cheers and salutations. Welcome one and all to Hard Lens Media. My name is Kit Cabello, and shout out to our Can TV audience as well. If you're watching us live right now, we are live on our YouTube, Rumble, Rockfin, and Odyssey platform every 9 a.m. Central Standard Time here in the wonderful city of Chicago. To our Can TV audience, follow us on all of our social media platforms, and then you'll see the rest of our show. But to my viewing audience, I have an outstanding guest, and I recently saw this interview on Nick Thompson's podcast. For those of you who may not remember, Nick Thompson was a guest on my show a few times, and he's definitely talked about a lot of social and mental health issues. And one guest in particular he had on his show, I immediately had to message him right away and said, I have to have her on my show because she was talking about something that has impacted all of our lives in some form or another. And I'm talking about MLMs. What are MLMs? These are multi-level marketing organizations, and they're on par with being pyramid schemes. Now, the thing is, what I just said right there didn't know justice. So I want to bring onto our show, first time ever, give it up for Roberta Blevins, who, again, is the expert on this. And you are going to witness firsthand the overall horror of MLMs, how they have a lobby group, why they're legal, and why they're scamming us, and how they came into existence. So without further ado, Roberta, thank you so much for joining us here at Hard Lens Media. I appreciate you waking up early in the morning for joining us. So for my viewing audience, can you please introduce yourself? And just a side note here real quick. Look, folks, I have a personal hatred. I know as someone who does commentary and news analysis, I have to be neutral, but I have my biases here. And you know, you can put this on my Wikipedia page, but I have a hatred for MLMs. I hate them. So I'm sorry. I want to give the floor to you now. Roberta, please introduce yourself to our audience. What got you interested in exposing MLMs? What are MLMs? Take it all away.
Hey, my name is Roberta Blevins. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for inviting me. And I am an anti-MLM advocate and activist.
Thank you.
And I expose multi-level marketing companies for what they do and give you all the information that they withhold on the internet. That's my job.
So, okay. Now, maybe let's start things off simple. Can you at least explain to my audience, because MLMs have been compared to as pyramid schemes. So what are pyramid schemes? What are MLMs? What is the difference between these two? And why is it that MLMs are legal, whereas pyramid schemes are just, that's just toxic, but yet it seems nonetheless that an MLM is a click, copy, paste. Am I getting this wrong? Can you please elaborate and enlighten us?
Yeah, no, you're pretty spot on there. The difference is really whether or not the government will legally protect you or not. That's really the only difference. When you really look at it and break it down, is government protection. Essentially, pyramid schemes and multi-level marketing companies are exactly the same. Multi-level marketing companies just follow a specific set of rules that was set forth by Amway in 1979. And those rules are not usually enforced, but the lobbying efforts of multi-level marketing, the DSA, the Direct Sellers Association, actually has a secondary group called the DSSRC, which is the Direct Selling Self-Regulatory Council. And so they are the ones who are like, oh no, we're following the rules. Don't worry about it. We're self-regulating. Don't even worry about it. We're following the rules. So essentially, they're exactly the same. One has a lobbying effort and government protection, and the other one is shut down sometimes, and then used as proof that multi-level marketing isn't a pyramid scheme, because if they were, they would have been shut down too. And so it's insidious.
Okay, now
they're pyramid schemes.
Okay, so then great. I'm glad I didn't get that wrong, but I think you did a fair explanation of it. But now you mentioned Amway, you mentioned what they did in 1979. Please explain who or what Amway is. What were they able to achieve in 1979? Are they still around? What is their influence in Washington, D.C.? Because as I explained to my audience, money in politics dictates our entire two-party neoliberal system. And now I'm curious, what exactly did Amway do? Please don't hold anything back. Let's start from the beginning. 1979. What an innocent year that was.
What hasn't Amway done, unfortunately? Amway, I call Amway the grandfather of multi-level marketing, because they are the reason that it's legal. They are the reason that it is still around, and they are the reason that the government protects it. But they are not the first MLM that was around, and they just sort of watched and like learned and just scammed a little bit better than everybody else. So essentially there was first a company called Nutrilite. It was a vitamin company and it was
Mm,
being a pyramid scheme. There were two men in Nutrilite who were like their top salesmen. That was the founders of Amway, Rich and Jay, Rich DeVos and Jay Van Andel, and they decided that they were going to leave Nutrilite because it wasn't being imploded and it was being investigated and it was going to be shut down. They took everything that they had learned from Nutrilite, started a new company called the American Way, which we know as Amway, literally copy and paste, and started this company. And then eventually, when Nutrilite was shut down, they bought Nutrilite and absorbed it back into Amway. And Nutrilite to this day is still a product line in Amway that you can buy today if you wanted to. I just think it's
God
funny that
damn
a
it.
pyramid scheme absorbed another pyramid scheme. It's something that happens all the time. It's really, really common in MLM actually. And
Okay.
this is one of like the very first like instances of this happening and it becoming something else. So there was another MLM, and if people are really, really interested, I have an episode about this coming up. But there was
Fantastic. Yes.
yeah, it's actually coming up, I think, in like a week and a half. But there was another MLM, and that was, oh my gosh, of course, I'm not going to remember what it's called right now because Michelle, I know Michelle's in here. What was that? What was that other MLM? Oh my God.
It's perfectly fine. No,
It's
but continue on.
7 o'clock in the morning over here.
Oh, wait, it's perfectly fine. It's
Costco.
perfectly.
Thank you.
Oh, Costco. All right, there
Michelle,
we go.
my girl's in here, so she knows she's got me. So Costco Interplanetary opened up, and this was another MLM that was shut down for being a pyramid scheme. Well, when that happened, there were a set of rules called the Costco rules that had to be abided by that were like, if you're doing this or this, then you are technically a pyramid scheme and you're going to be shut down. Well, about 5 years later or so, Amway started doing these exact things and they were violating the Costco rules, and thus started this case with the FTC in 1975, which led 4 years and finally concluded in 1979. And it was essentially that as long as a business was operating under what they now are going to be calling the Amway rules, then they wouldn't be a pyramid scheme. And again, we go into that self-regulation with the DSSRC. This is all sort of what's come from this. But
Mhm.
essentially, they had this judge that came in and looked at the case and was like, this looks like a business to me. And essentially, MLMs were legal from that moment forward, as long as they followed the Amway rules. One of my favorite rules of the Amway rules, one of the Amway rules is the 70% rule. And this is just
What's
a fun
that?
little statistical thing. So, in order to not be a pyramid scheme, 70% of the sales of your organization has to come from outside of the pyramid, which means it can't be reps buying from each other or selling to each other. It can't be you buying your own inventory and having it count, although it does. 70% in terms of legality, not in terms of
Okay.
like being an Amway, in terms of legality, 70% has to come from outside of the pyramid. But in research that the anti-MLM movement has done, based
Okay.
on what we've seen with lawsuits, only 10% of sales come from outside of the multi-level marketing structure. So the other 90% is all internal sales, people buying from each other, people buying their own ranks, people selling things just back and forth, the same $25 just being regurgitated over and over and over again. The sales are not real. They're
Hold on.
all
Hold on.
fake.
Hold on. My brain is exploding right here. Okay, because I'm familiar with overall the hypocrisy of MLMs and pyramid schemes, and as I hope my audience will, and I'll explain later on why I just really hate them, because they, I'll just rip this band-aid off. Many a time MLMs try to come into my personal life. Thankfully, I was always there to stop it or impact some of my relatives. I think we all have horror stories of people who were scammed by MLMs. So the one thing I got to ask here, all right, and I think, because I think we talk about the overall horror, what it does to people a little bit later in the interview, but how is this even possible? Because the thing is, a pyramid scheme and MLM can only last for so long, because eventually you're going to run out of people to con the scam to be in your organization. I mean, everything does implode. How is it that Amway or other large MLMs haven't imploded yet? Or is it because they're getting a government bailout, or what exactly is keeping them sustained? I mean, is there any kind of situation that could be the proverbial pin to pop that bubble.
So thank you for bringing that up. It's an excellent point. There are two things that make an MLM successful, right? One is the pyramid scheme and people
Okay.
getting in and just the regurgitation of that. The second is the organization. And that's where things become really difficult, like different and difficult, is because the organization that is running this MLM is akin to a cult. And I will call it a cult all day long. In the Netflix documentary that I was in, I called it a cult. I have no problem calling MLMs cults. They absolutely are. They use coercive control and high demand control to get people buying forever and ever and ever.
Okay.
Like a regular Ponzi scheme, you're going to run out. People are going to start figuring things out. A regular pyramid scheme, people are going to
Right.
cut their losses and leave. They're going to run out of money or something. Here in an MLM, because you have a built-in community, the second that you start thinking, oh, I think I should leave, that community is going to rally around you. You might call it, like, people might call it love bombing, something like that. In an MLM, we call it swarming because it's not like a narcissistic relationship where it's one-on-one. It's
Okay.
from all angles. So you're getting it from your upline, you're getting it from your sideline, you're getting it from your downline, you're getting it from corporate, you're getting it from friends. They're in other teams when you say you're going to leave, and they swarm you and they
Okay.
convince you, like, you need to stay. There's new stuff coming. Like, it's going to be so great. They keep you on the hook with manipulation of your own body
Wow.
chemicals that you're addicted to. Dopamine is one of the main ones that they use. Very, very akin to gambling as well, which is what keeps you in the casino longer. All those bells and whistles and jingle jangles. It's
Right.
the same sort of thing. They've got conventions once a year. You can't miss it. They've got
I've
these
seen those
trainings.
YouTube videos. I've seen
Right.
those YouTube videos, and it is like a cult. I don't mean to cut you off. So I want to return
No,
back,
you're
but
totally fine.
to my viewing audience, I saw what this is where my hatred really started growing for MLMs. I saw this event either took in 2010 or maybe 2011, and it just huge stadium, crowds of people, and they were bringing up all these speakers who were probably the higher echelon members of this MLM. I think it could have been Amway. I don't know. I have to find that video, so I have to go digging back in the YouTube machine. But and then everyone's like cheering, like woo! Everyone's wearing color coordinated shirts, and there's this one person like chanting and waving the people around. I was like, well, who are these people? What you're rooting for your bosses? I'm not going to root for my boss or manager. Get the hell out of
Yeah.
here. But it was maddening, and they were all
Mhm.
saying like, I used to be just like you in the crowd, and you could be up here just like me. I'm like, how is it even statistically possible if you're telling everyone that they could be on the stage when it's not possible?
Right.
Continue on. Continue on.
Yeah, no, literally that could have been any MLM. They're all like giant troll parties. If you've ever seen that movie Trolls, it's just
Okay.
like that. Lots of glitter, streamers, music, loud sounds and noises and music, bright colors. Everybody's amped up. Everybody's super excited to be there. Exactly. They're absolutely all the same. It's a very interesting phenomenon. Again, it's going to be playing on your dopamine. It's going to be
Mhm.
playing on the fact that, like, you're there, you're here, we're having a good time. Aren't you on the right track? Isn't this where you want to be? Like, what are your friends doing this weekend while you're at this amazing 3-day party? In, like at the La Quinta Inn in Anaheim. Like, what? It's
Mhm.
ridiculous. When you pull yourself out from it, you're just like, what am I doing? But in the moment, like, it feels so right, so real, so fun because it's a cult. It
Mhm.
absolutely is a cult. Yeah.
Okay. So as an organization, Amway or anything else like that, how is it that they're able to at least bring in fresh blood? Because in this day and age, I mean, I get it that people are desperate to make ends meet, and maybe they're preying on people's despair, the fact that there's a lack of economic growth in this country. How is it that MLMs are able to really get away with bringing in new people? Because we live in a day and age where we have the internet at our disposal, and there's so many horror stories of people saying like, yeah, I used to be part of this MLM, and it was a cult, it was a nightmare, and it was a nightmare to get out. How is it that they're operating like this? What exactly are they doing? Are they showing up at job fairs too, or something like that, or is there something else that we're missing here?
No, they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. There's an MLM for every single thing. There is a there's an MLM for everybody. There's MLMs that sell toilet paper. And it's not just the thing. It's not just the thing that they're selling. It's the community. It's the friends. It's the financial whatever that you're going to get. They've got people that are saying, "Oh, look at me. I'm on stage. I was just like you. 2 years ago, and now I'm driving a Bugatti, a Lamborghini. Look how amazing I am. If I can do it, you can do it. I was on food stamps last week, and now look at me. I have a lake house. Like, it's so much FOMO. The FOMO marketing is absolutely like one of the most essential parts of this, because if I can't stand on that stage and show you my perfect facade of a life, exactly what I want you to see,
Mhm.
and you don't fall for it, like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
that's what it is. You're sitting there, you're going, I'm vulnerable. Anybody that falls for this is vulnerable. You're not stupid, you're vulnerable. I have seen doctors, lawyers, the smartest people, the most head
Oh,
screwed on straight
no.
people fall for these things because they're vulnerable. That is the only thing you need to be. So I always let people know, like, these people in an MLM, they are not necessarily nefarious. They are being told the people outside of our company need you. They're your friends, your family. They need the products that we sell. They saved your life. You can save your friend's life too. So that negative, like, recruiting aspect is now turned around into, you're going to be blessing somebody's life. It's not you bothering your friend. It's you helping them. It's you saving them. So all you have, sorry about that. All you have
That's
to be
fine,
is
that's fine.
vulnerable. All you have to be is vulnerable. If
Okay,
you are
God.
vulnerable because of money, any single MLM can help you with that, right? If you are vulnerable because you have psoriasis, or you don't like your skin, or you're breaking out, there's MLMs that sell skincare that can help you. If you feel like you need to lose weight or you need to eat healthier, there's MLMs that have diet shakes. So anything that you're posting about on social media, anything you're complaining about to people in public, if you're even having a conversation, MLMers, or Huns as we like to call them, they are literally trained to, like, hone in on that complaint and be
Oh my
like, I
god.
can help you. So there's somebody born every single day. There's somebody turning 18 every single day, which is the MLMs. They say that, like, we'll never run out of people. That's not true. Exponentially, after I think 14 successful levels of recruiting in a 6x6 pyramid, you will run out of people on Earth.
Yes,
It's just,
exactly.
it's just
You know,
mathematically impossible.
it has to collapse. There's no way it can last forever.
Absolutely. So they have to keep it going with something more than that,
Oh,
because nobody needs a garage full of lipstick. It's just ridiculous. So this community, this cult, this family, the people that keep you in, the people that keep you motivated, the people that shun you and talk shit about you when you leave,
mhm.
that's the cult. That's what keeps you in. You want to impress those people. If you're vulnerable, if you're already feeling like you're not good enough, or maybe you have, parents that weren't that great, and you meet somebody like, my company was called LuLaRoe. If you watch the documentary Lula Rich, you'll see this woman. She's a psychotic person. But when you're vulnerable, she looks like the person that's going to save your life. Like, I honestly was like, oh my God, you're nicer than my mom is. Like, I wish I had a mother figure like you. And she is crazy. Like, this woman
Okay.
literally told me at the time that if my husband, again, I'm divorced now, but my husband at the time, if he was not all in with LuLaRoe, then the owner of the company, told me at an event that I should just find a new husband.
Yo!
Like, that was her
What?
marriage advice.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hey, boss, get out of my life. That's no bueno right there. What the hell? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
And
Wait.
I'm seeing people here in the chat saying, like, what about crypto? What about, like, the US government? Yes, absolutely. All of this. All of
Okay.
this is the
What?
same. You are all feeling the red flags. It is all the same. Don't worry. I feel exactly the same way.
Now,
We just don't have that kind of time today.
now, wait. Hold on. So Robert Templeton says Amway's been in business for 64 years. So how has it they been in 64 years? And Dr. Nick, one of my moderators in the chat, also asked, are MLMs on the stock exchange? And if
Yeah. Some.
and if so, then how is it that they are still on the stock exchange? Who opened that door for them? So can you explain that?
MLM did that, and the lobbying efforts did that. The
Mhm.
reason that China is in the World Trade Organization is because of Amway. Like these
China,
are,
because of Amway.
yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Wow. All right.
It's wild.
How
Orrin
did that?
Hatch.
Okay.
It's Orrin
Please.
Hatch's fault. No, wait,
Oh,
hold on. I think Orrin Hatch was Shay. I think I can't remember who it was that helped get China into the World Trade Organization, but it was essentially because Amway was putting lobbying efforts towards getting them in, because there's 1 billion people in China who had never heard of multi-level marketing, and they wanted in on that population. Essentially what happened was China gets invited in, Amway goes in, the Chinese government within a few months realizes that these are pyramid schemes and shuts it down, says no more MLMs in China, this is not allowed. And then Amway comes in, and this is all paraphrasing for entertainment purposes, but if you really want to know all of this, it's all in Ponzi-nomics by Robert Fitzpatrick. It's kind of a slow read, but it's incredibly informative. So China comes into the World Trade Organization, they do the pyramid schemes, really devastates the population of China, and the government shuts it down, and Amway comes in and says, well, you didn't mean like American MLMs though, right? Like you just meant Chinese MLMs. Those are the scammers, right? American MLMs. We're cool, right? Here's some money. Is that fine? You know what I'm talking about, right? Here's some money. MLMs, American MLMs are fine, right? And the Chinese government's like, yeah, American MLMs are fine. And so that's essentially what happened, unfortunately.
And so now that China got in because of Amway, is Amway still influential in China? Because so the answer is yeah. Hey, why not? I was assuming that there'd be some accountability, but how dare I assume with
There's
government? None. Yeah, there is no accountability. Okay, so for my viewing audience, because now I think it's important for us to kind of break down the absolute terror that MLMs can be. Is there a few MLMs that have stood out to you as being nightmares, as being, oh my goodness, you will be in an A24 film if you don't leave this MLM right away? Is there anything that's really stood out to you, like, my goodness, I can't believe they still exist? I know we were being ragged on Amway, but I would like for you to just kind of enlighten us just overall, like why we need to be concerned. And is there any particular MLM that really stands out as like, oh my god, look out?
So on my podcast, one of the questions I ask every guest at the very end is, what's the worst MLM in your opinion? And a lot of people say Amway. It's the most popular answer. But a lot of people recently have been saying all of them. And I agree with that too. I'm like, there's no wrong answer here. It's just a personal preference. One of the ones that stand out a lot besides Amway and besides LuLaRoe, which is the one that I was in, which does have a film about it too, actually. Three documentaries.
3 documentaries.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
There's a Vice one that I did, and then there's the Amazon one, and then there's also a Discovery Plus one.
Wow.
And they are all terrible. But I will say that the health and wellness ones are probably more nefarious, because they're coming in and they're saying, we can cure cancer, just take our magic pill. There was a man who his parents were convinced that their MLM and their magic pills would cure their son's schizophrenia. And there's some trigger warnings right here. They took him off his antipsychotics, and he ended up attacking his parents and killing his father, and severely beating his mother because they took him off his antipsychotics and put him on this like alfalfa pill or something ridiculous. So there's like the worst of the worst can possibly happen. Health and wellness ones are really bad because they call it a proprietary blend. So you don't really know what's in there. It can affect people's medication. It can affect people's birth control. It can affect people's antipsychotics. It can affect people's like just mood stabilizing medication. And you don't even realize what's happening until something's going on weeks later because it's been interfering. They don't really give you a lot of information about what's in there. That also comes down to an act that passed, I believe it was in 1994, but again, there's a lot of numbers. I believe it was 94. It's called DSHEA, DSHEA, and it was a drug act basically that took regulation away from the FDA. So anything that's supplement related, and MLM was super heavy in this, and this is where Orrin Hatch comes in. Orrin Hatch was at the time the representative of Utah, which is really just synonymous with multi-level marketing. And so Orrin Hatch was instrumental in getting DSHEA passed. And essentially what happened after DSHEA was the FDA had no regulation or no government reach until after something happened. So that's why you see that, nothing has been evaluated by the drug, this can't cure anything. And all of those disclaimers were literally because of this DSHEA Act. And basically it was because MLMs wanted less regulation into the products that they could make and put out there.
Wow.
And
Oh
so
my
you've
God.
got this unregulated supplement industry now because MLM wanted to be able to slap whatever they wanted on a label. And of course the supplement industry was like, yeah, no, we're right there with you. We don't want regulation either. So they teamed up together essentially and deregulated the FDA so that they could really put anything in those pills that they wanted and call it proprietary.
So where, I guess, okay, where are the authorities at? Where's the police? Police, help, help, help. What's is there anything being done legally at the state level, at the federal level? Are there any agencies? I'm only asking because I guess, all of this sounds absolutely criminal. And because it is in many,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just my opinion how I feel about MLMs. So I'll be very clear. I have a personal hatred towards MLMs. But is there anything being done? Is there any kind of legal work being done? Have you worked with any kind of organizations that are trying to break apart the MLM empire? Because from what you've been saying to my audience, not only do they have a stranglehold over Washington, D.C., have influence in the stock market, but also they're overseas in China. So they have an international grip.
Oh, they're
What's being
everywhere.
done? Okay, so then they're everywhere.
Every
Uh,
every
yeah,
country, almost every single country. Yeah.
how absolutely horrific. So what's being done to break it apart, or is this just something that we have to live with as a parasitic entity for the rest of our lives?
Well, let's go back to those lobbying efforts on K Street, right? So the
Okay.
DSA is on K Street. They've got an office just like all of the other lobbying efforts. And I'm going to give you a number right now that might be staggering, but it is true.
Okay.
The DSA is 190 billion with a B dollar a year industry. That is more than the NFL, Hollywood, and music combined.
Oh God. Okay.
So $190 billion a year is keeping this afloat. That's why it's not getting shut down. That's why it's still around. That's why it's legalized. They have the FTC, which is
Mhm.
unbelievably understaffed. The very small sect of the FTC that actually works on like scams and MLMs and that kind of stuff, because we work with representatives of these organizations. We have like a group meeting every month and
Okay.
sort of check in. And so we kind of have a little bit of understanding about what's going on because there's so many crypto scams and romance scams and identity theft and things like that that are happening as well. Because that small section of the FTC is so limited, people are being pulled away from the MLM stuff to work on these other things. And so it's really kind of like this internal defunding,
Mhm.
which I don't know how to combat that. I have no control of that. But we work with a lot of consumer protection groups. We have a conference every year. It's actually coming up in May. I was a speaker at the last two conferences. I don't know what I'm going to do this year aside from overseeing it, but we have a lot of people, regulators will come in, people that are working in the industry, like lawyers that have prosecuted multi-level marketing companies in the last year. We talk a little bit about that. We kind of just connect about all of the things that we're doing. We've been working on a proposed rule for I think this is 2 years we've been working on this rule to get certain things changed to regulate MLM a little bit more. There's this proposed rule about gig economy and like, do Uber drivers, how are they considered? And so MLMs were also in that. Do we consider them employees? Should they be getting like a flat rate above everything? So there's a lot of like labor exploitation, and MLM sort of fits into that. But again, it's its own entity. So it's really hard to sort of pin it down and force it to do things. So we right now, the new gig thing is that the real estate agencies and MLMs are like coming together to say, oh no, real estate agents and MLMers aren't employees. We don't have to pay them an hourly wage with all of these new like labor exploitation laws that are coming out. So it's really like they're trying to keep them contractual so that they don't have to give them any benefits. It's really nefarious. And we're just trying to really like let people know the truth and let people know what's actually happening and like what we're working toward.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, a lot of people like in the FTC when they retire will get hired on the compliance boards of a lot of these multi-level marketing companies. So there's
Oh,
also that
the
sort of thing, right?
revolving door.
Yeah,
Great. Oh,
exactly. Right. So like
something different. Okay.
yesterday I was telling you how you were breaking all the rules, and today I'm telling you how to get past all of the rules you were breaking legally. So it's really gross. It's like, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Maybe Lucky Luciano and Alphonse Capone and the whole outfit from the 1930s, instead of just getting involved with prohibition and organized crime, they should just been doing MLMs in the
This
beginning.
is this is absolutely the new organized crime, and it sort of all came apart or came together right after World War II. So it's like when the mobs were not it's the new mobs. Like it really is. I've had people come on the show and compare it to the mob before and their experiences in MLM to be akin
Now,
to being in the mob. Mhm.
Now I'm gonna bring this up. Shout out to Dr. Nick. Hey, that's not once but twice you've been shouted out on the show for the interview, and will show up on Can TV as well. Um, are there any good MLMs? Now I'm gonna just before I have you answer, I'm gonna say no. But can you answer that? Are there any good MLMs?
To me, no. I
Okay.
would not say there are any good MLMs because essentially they're all set up exactly the same and they all have very bad bones. The bones are rotten and all of these companies are built on rotten bones. And so unfortunately, yeah, if you've got an upline, if you've got a downline, if you've got to pay to work somewhere that doesn't guarantee a wage in return, I'll tell people because I get a lot of hate in my comments like, I had to buy non-slip shoes for my job at McDonald's. Is McDonald's an MLM? And I was like, no, they don't want you to slip and fall. Like it's just part of your uniform. Like that's just like, come on here.
I actually got a similar story. When I used to work at Costco back in the day, shout out to my Costco people out there. Lifting up all that heavy stuff, working with those pallets. I said, hey, look, you got to buy steel-toed boots. Everyone has to do it, and they actually gave us. We bought it, but then they would reimburse us.
Oh,
So then there you
nice.
go. So that was like, okay, buy steel-toe boots and we'll reimburse you. So there
Yeah.
you go. I mean, this is Costco and MLM. The answer is no. Costco's a
Yeah.
great company. So there you go.
MLMs
Not
love
sponsored.
to.
Not sponsored. Not sponsored.
We love Costco over here too.
Okay,
MLMs
good.
love to pretend that they're like your own Costco. In fact, the episode that I'm editing right now is about Amway, and it was a woman
Okay.
in Washington near Kirkland, which is where Costco's from.
Okay,
And
right.
it's really interesting how her recruiter used that. Like, wouldn't you just want to have your own Costco? Like you can just Amway's your own Costco. Everything that you would buy at Costco, you could buy through Amway. And you buy it at the beginning of the month. And that's how you hit your numbers early. And then you don't have to worry about qualifying at the end of the month because you qualify at the beginning of the month. And so I hear these stories of people saying, yep, so we bought, flats of energy drink and we bought flats of bars and we bought flats of these shakes to hit all of our dittos and all of our minimums to hit our qualifications. And then we literally live off of shakes and bars and energy drinks the whole month. That's all they drink. This woman got like really sick because that's all she was eating because they were spending all of their food budget on Amway to hit their qualifications.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. So some of these products that they're selling at these MLMs, like how legit are they, or do they cause more problems than they solve? I mean, so there's a big unknown question mark. Like no one knows. Or
I say the products are inconsequential. Okay, there's going to be a lot of products that are super basic, and they're going to be at an upcharge. A really great example, and I actually have one here because I bought it a long time ago. That glowing orb is a wax warmer that I got from an MLM called Sensi when I was deep in my MLM crazy life. So I bought that. It was a $50 wax warmer. Could I buy a $12 wax warmer at Walmart that does exactly the same thing? Yes. But this one lights up all fancy and it's cool. And like I fought people for it because there was a wait list. And so again, we've got into this FOMO, we've got into this like this gambling aspect and this like dopamine. That's another thing where you're getting people to buy these things because of dopamine. And if you don't buy it now, you may never see it again. You got to get it, put it in your cart. So I could have bought a wax warmer that works just as well as that thing. And when that thing breaks, that's exactly what I'll do. Because I also tell people, look, if you spent real money on real things, as long as you're not hurting yourself or others, like if the shake makes you break out into anaphylactic hives, like stop drinking it. But if it doesn't, and don't throw away good things that are not hurting you, just replace it with something else when you run out. So I think a lot of people feel a lot of guilt and shame when they realize that they're in a scam or they're in something like this and they're like, I have to purge my life. And I'm like, it's very expensive to purge your life and start over. It's okay to just be like, I got to get rid of this coffee before I buy my other coffee, or I got to get rid of all this wax before I buy something else.
Wow.
It's the products are inconsequential. So sometimes people are like, but I really needed that thing. It saved my life. And then you're like,
Okay.
they leave and you're like, does that thing not save your life anymore? Like,
Okay.
you know,
Wow.
so it's all built in.
I,
Nobody needs nail stickers when you can buy them at Walmart for $5. Nobody needs to pay $15 from your friend Sally. Like, you just don't need to do this. All of those trips, those bonuses, the car programs, all of that is all built into that price. The MLM's not losing money on this. Like, they're building in all that free stuff that people get into the price of the things that you're spending. So you're actually funding all of this as just a person who's in this.
So, I have a couple people who are just tuning in. They're asking what MLM stands for. It's again multi-level marketing.
Multi-level
And
marketing.
if you're just tuning in, please hit that YouTube rewind button so you could start for this interview from the beginning. Because right now, again, there's one question in particular, because I know that it's early in the morning for you, and I do appreciate you making time out of your day. And I have to say this, I would love to have you back on because I
Of
feel like we
course.
only just scratched the surface.
Oh yeah, no.
Talk about the doc. You know what? In fact, we didn't even scratch the surface. I think we just dusted the top of the table off. So that's what we did.
I'm in my 4th season and I produce a podcast every single Sunday. So I have like 227 or so episodes.
Then I
And
need you back
I'm
on.
scratching the surface on mine. Like, we still haven't like dove into all the topics and intersections that I've wanted to in the 3.5 years that we've had the show. So yeah.
Okay, so look, because I'm pretty sure we could talk a lot, because I do want to talk about the personal damages that does to people. And I think a few minutes won't do it justice, but I think let's talk about like the shame aspect of people
Yeah.
realize like, hey, oh my God, I've been
Yeah.
scammed, and like then comes the arduous task of either confronting it and getting out. And for those who are maybe watching and choosing not to comment, that maybe realize that they're in the MLM and they want to get out, how can they do this? What would you tell somebody? Say like, hey, it's okay to get out of this, and there's ways to help out, or things that you could do to get out. Like, what can a person do to get out? I know it's not fair, because I want to have a more in-depth conversation about it. But if somebody's watching this right now and they're thinking like, hey, I need to get out of this thing, and my life, my health, my mental health is in danger, how do I leave an MLM? Take it away.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing is to realize that there's problems and there's toxicity and then there's problematic aspects of this. If you're feeling that weird feeling in your stomach where you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I feel weird, that actually has a name. It's called cognitive dissonance. And it's
Mhm.
essentially that feeling where two things are happening at the same time that are in contrast of each other. So you're like, I'm in this MLM and it's really great, but I'm looking at my bank account and I'm broke as fuck. Like, what's going on? It's that sort of thing. So if you're feeling that, if it's knocking at your door, if your shelf is breaking, which is another kind of cult saying, if this is happening and you're feeling it, like, you're not wrong. I think it's
Wow.
really important. One of the reasons that I have my podcast is that people can listen completely anonymously. They're not like in a chat and their like isn't showing up on social media. I have a lot of people that will reach out to me on fake accounts because they're literally terrified of their upline learning that they're talking to me or following me. So you can search the anti-MLM hashtag. There are
Mhm.
tons and tons and tons of people that are talking about this. You can find the exact advocate that like works for your personality, your attitude, like what you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
And to listen to those people and to really sit. And when it feels awkward, don't turn it off. Sit there and go, why does this feel awkward? Why am I feeling strange about this? And really sit and have those conversations. It's really important to have somebody, I call it an anchor, somebody who's
Mhm.
outside, who's not going to be judgmental. You can use me as your anchor if you really need one,
Mhm.
just to check in and say, hey, I was thinking about buying this. And be like, you don't need that. Have you done a profit and loss statement this month? Are you still in the green? Are you in the red? What's going on? What are the things that you're being encouraged to do? To have somebody who has no affiliation with the multi-level marketing to just keep you in check and to keep you safe is really important as well. And when you start to leave, I've got a woman who was at the top of the pyramid who emailed me a few months ago and said, I've been listening to the show. I'm connecting. I realize that what I'm in is really bad. I need to get out, but all of my eggs are in this basket.
Wow.
All
So
of our
somebody on the
bills are
top
paid.
pyramid wants out?
Yeah, it is really
Oh,
vicious up
okay.
there.
Okay,
Really vicious up there. So she's like, "We
I gotta
gotta
have
get
you back
out."
on.
You do for sure.
Yeah.
We got
Okay.
to get out. We don't know what to do. My husband like retired. Like I retired my husband, which is the thing. All of our bills are paid by this MLM. What do I do? And I said, first things first, let's get your husband back into the workforce. Okay. Don't quit your MLM. Be aware of what you're spending. Be aware of what you're putting out there. You know, she's like, I'm not going to recruit anymore. I'm not bringing any more people in. I'm going to just, and I said, okay, perfect. You know, be very aware of what you're doing and realize that you're doing this to get out. So don't accrue more debt and more inventory. Work like you're getting out. Get your husband back into the workforce. Get him back on a paycheck. Get him back, and don't and do not commingle that money with this other MLM money because we need to replace it. And I said, and just check in with me. Just send me an email every couple months. Let me know how it's going. And they're on their way. And she's like, I'm feeling really good about this. Like we're getting back, we're investing money. He's got a 401k. Doing all of these things is really important. Some people, the lucky ones, can join and go, oh, this isn't for me, and leave and lose nothing but their like $99 entry fee, right? Like
That's lucky.
some
Okay.
people can do that. And that's totally okay. But there are other people who have been in for 20 years, people who are so deep, people who unfriended family members, who blocked friends, who did all of this stuff, spent tons of money, and they have so much guilt and so much sunk cost fallacy that they're staying in longer because they're like, well, I've invested so much money. I lost my best friend over this. I can't just leave. I can't just leave.
Wow.
Like, I can't just admit that everybody was right and I got scammed. So a lot of people will double down too. And it's really important to understand that that shame and that fear keeps us in longer. And there's an entire group of people. And I would even argue that there's probably more people who are out of MLM that are currently in MLM because we know what's going on. But what's really interesting is they silence us by this whole built-in thing from the beginning. It's so easy. Anyone can do it. The product sells itself. Everybody loves our product. It flies off the shelf. To 6 months later where you're like, I can't sell this. They're like, well, no one told you it was going to be easy. This is sales. This is hard work. Maybe you're just not cut out for this. Maybe you didn't realize that businesses take hard work. Who wouldn't realize that? Maybe a loser. Maybe you shouldn't be in business. Maybe sales isn't for you. Doesn't seem like you're cut out for this.
Oh, wow.
So do you know what I mean? Like it goes
Yeah.
from this one thing to this completely different thing, and they're completely contradicting statements of each other. So don't listen to those people. They are there to manipulate you, and that is all they're there to do. Get that anchor, talk to people, look at your finances, put money aside, realize that this is bad. You don't need those lipsticks. You don't need the wax melt. You can find all of these things outside of your MLM for far cheaper. If you really want a stock of this stuff, you can go to Walmart or Target or anything like that. Okay, another huge red flag that I love to tell people, because people are like, well, I asked and they said it wasn't an MLM. MLMs have all kinds of names. So if there's an upline and there's a downline and you have to pay to join, it's an MLM. They call themselves network marketing, direct sales, transformational marketing, social selling. I've heard all kinds of things. So any of these, it's all the same. People are like, this isn't an MLM, it's direct sales. I was like, hun, babe, that's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. They're telling you it's different, using Orwellian doublespeak to confuse you intentionally on purpose. Wow. I tell people, I'm like, I don't make any money when you leave your MLM. But who loses money when you leave your MLM? Because it's not me. I get to go to bed tonight, whether you leave your MLM or not. I'm not worried about whether or not you're recruiting people or my paycheck is affected. It's not. So I'm like, the people that are affected financially are the ones that are keeping you in. And the biggest red flag to me is when people say pyramid schemes are illegal. Because the only company, the only industry that will teach you what to say when someone inevitably brings up the fact that you're in a pyramid scheme are pyramid schemes. Target is not telling you that on your orientation day. Welcome to Target. We're so glad to have you as associates. First things first, we are not a pyramid scheme. We are not. If someone asks, we are not. That's not happening anywhere aside from
never heard that. Never heard that at any retail store I worked at, any kind of government job I worked at. Never heard that. Hey, before you start, just know we're not a pyramid scheme. Okay, Roberta, I have to have you back on. I think for this because now I want to hear about the next time I have you on, and I got to have you on next week or either the week after.
Yeah, totally.
I want to hear about the cutthroat behaviors of the upper echelon people. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'll make the ancient
I'll start
Romans
gathering some stories.
blush with envy. So I want to hear that. So for my viewing audience, what I would like from you, Roberta, please by sometime today or this week, send me all your links on social media so I can
will.
post them not only in the comment section but in the description box as well, so people can follow you. This has to be a to be continued to our Can TV audience. Please follow us on YouTube, Rumble, Rockfin, Odyssey, and Kick. We'll be continuing on with the rest of our show. Just real quick, is there anything you want to plug before we continue on with the rest of our main show?
I would just say if anything I said today sparked any sort of interest, you should check out my podcast or find me on social media, Roberta Blevins, or the podcast is called Life After MLM. It's a fun little adventure. So if you like a really produced show, start in the newer ones. And if you like a glow up, then you can start from the beginning.
Okay. All right. Done deal indeed. Roberta, I think right now this has been one of my favorite interviews to do so far because I have an absolute anger towards MLMs, but that's a story for another day. But until then, thank you so much for joining us. And folks, we're going to have her back on because I want to hear about what the echelon, the leaders, the gods of the pyramids, of the MLMs have to say. So, folks, we're going to continue on the rest of our main show. Thank you, Roberta, for joining us. We're going to take a quick short break, and we'll be right back with our main show.
Thanks so much.
Land of the free, and you'll know us by the trail of dead. It's just one more world war to complete the set. When you live by the pike, you die by the pith. You die wide-eyed, still pleading the fifth, or crying divine epithets and pathetic attempts at defense. All empathetic for those on your side of the fence. Well, I'll gladly put you and your legacy into an alternate tense of faltering senses and altered events. Like hun, it ain't a hearse, it's a reaper's stretch. Ah, how sweet, she said. Bunch of hordes in the street like it's Evil Dead. Where the thin blue line meets razor's edge. And where the corporate ladder ascends to a steel-toed boot that awaits on the ledge. You'll be licking it fresh at your boss's request till it stomps each finger and watches you fall to your death. And drown in an ocean of debt. Gone with the fodder who gathered to honor the patient left, who purity tested themselves into sections, step by step, till the next election, when it's just one them and the sound of their well-read theorized breath. That's harm reduction for the lowly cost of you holding your nose and just openly buying the theft. Maybe that's all in the flick of the pen. Maybe we're all one unmarked van from a trip to the pen. Being guarded by pigs who exist on a diet of dying breaths of much worthier men. Honey, heaven's expecting you. Just don't get too hung up on who they let in. Just look up at the shine of the pearly gates. You don't need to worry if there's lead in the paint. You don't need to worry if there's lead in the water, lead in the milk, lead in the honey, lead in the caustic embrace of the Heavenly Father. Lead is the flavor of passive perpetual slaughter. Lead is the taste of us led to the ledge by the lure of the legend of expert consensus, and then beckon to stretch it just one step farther. And I hope all the folks who were boastfully gloating and toasting themselves as the heroes of COVID for boosting their boosters and doing their part are now equally thrilled to be starstruck martyrs. All laid in a government grave with anonymous markers, like you're back from the carvers and off to the splicer. You're the very first wave to be slain in the war against Pfizer. That 100 years war against Pfizer. They are thinning the crowd that is striking right now to bleed adequate pay from those inhuman misers, who all sit in their office and designate coffins to people regarded as nothing but profit for Kaiser. Still the Dems want you nicer. Dems want you softer. Dems want you kinder. Yeah, they all want you graciously starving in silence. You will speak when you're spoken to. Rest of the time, you and all of us peasants are merely depressing statistics neglected in Congress's binders. All bled, bone dry, then fed to the grinder. Our headstones line each step as reminders. That's a lesson in object permanence learned in the furnace by workers consigned to the fire. Workers bled, bone dry, then fed by the fed to the grinder. Fed by the fed to the grinder. Now the fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsad, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Now the fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, and it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. And the fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, bleeds you dry, then dines on the dead. The fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. Here's where our leaders would see us all led. The fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your wealth into bread for itself, then it bleeds you dry, then it dines on the dead. Fed went straight to your head. Mind what you hide and your size unsaid, and your eyes turn blind to the signs unread. Flag bright red, so you let it in bed. You let it inside, and you'll see that it's fed. Never you mind that it grinds your mind, that it grinds yourself, that it bleeds you dry, that it dines on the dead. Here's where our leaders would see us all led.